welcome and good morning to our latest webinar, Are You Too Socially Distanced from Your Customers? It's a clever play on words, I think you'll agree, this title, both between the topic for today, which is advertising on social media, and the global pandemic, which you may or may not have heard about in recent times. Thankfully, that'll be the last mention of anything COVID related today. I'm sure, like me, you are tired of and I've seen enough content related to the new normal. But I am Darren, I am your host for today. For those of you who have been on previous webinars, this is our 5th event in pretty much as many months. So welcome back. For those of you joining us for the first time, thank you for finding us and taking time out of your schedules to join us today. For those of you who are new to Summit and to these events, I'll give you a quick introduction to who Summit are. So at Summit, we refer to ourselves as change makers, and that's reflective of the work we're really proud to do for our clients. We are specialists in retail, and over the last 20 years, we've been helping brands and retailers grow their business through the use of digital marketing and e-commerce. And through our people, technology, and experience, we help our clients maximize customer engagement and ROI. And we're here to talk to you today because hopefully convince you that there may be further conversations we can have about us being change makers for you and your business. I am joined today by some really great guest speakers. So as I said, my name is Darren. I am Product Strategy Director, and I'm going to be kind of hosting and cajoling our other guests. I'm going to be joined very shortly by my colleague Carl. And Carl has been with Summit for over 10 years, and in that time there's not many jobs he hasn't done at Summit, and there isn't much that he doesn't know about digital marketing. So he's going to share some of his insights and his experiences in the paid social space. We were due to be joined by Aynsley from Cox Cox, but unfortunately he's no longer able to join us. But as a backup, we will be recording an interview with him at a later date, and we'll make sure that's made available to everyone. But Aynsley's absence does mean that we have a little bit more time to spend with our third guest, who we're really lucky to be joined by. So Joel from TikTok is joining us, and I'm really excited to hear what he's got to say about the exciting growth that TikTok have seen in the last year or two. So moving on to today's agenda, I will shortly hand over to Carl, who's going to talk you through our Voice of the Customer survey. So this is a survey that we've run recently, looking at 1,000 UK consumers and asking them about their attitudes towards using social media and other online platforms, how they see and view advertising when using those platforms, and how this influences and impacts their purchase decisions. Off the back of that, Carl's going to reveal his top tips for success in paid social, how you can take your paid social budget and really make the most of it. And there'll be a bit of a shameless plug in there as well for how Summit can help you realize some of that potential if some of what Carl has to say resonates and you think there's opportunities for us to help. We'll then hand over to Joel from TikTok, and he's going to give us an update on some of the ways to engage customers in their platform, which is obviously one of the fastest growing platforms in the UK. And then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end as well. So please do make use of the Q&A chat box for any questions you have for myself, Carl, or Joel. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Carl to join me. Are you there, Carl?
I am indeed.
So over to you, pal.
Yeah. Hello and welcome everybody. I'm going to apologise in advance for the rather roughness in my voice. I'm a little under the weather today, but hopefully I'll make it through the session, not a problem. So first off, let us just start with what it is that we do at Summit, I guess, and what makes it possible for us to work and why social is so important. And that is around, today, I guess we're specifically talking around social in general. And the reason why everybody's talking about social at the moment is because for the past 3, 4, 5 years or so, the world has, and especially in our industry, has been focused on these new social platforms. And actually it's being echoed by how people are using them. The amount of time that people are spending on the platforms, in particular over the last 12 to 18 months, has increased significantly. And people are using them in different ways as well. really interesting around the number of product searches, for example, that are taking place within the social space now, compared to, you know, how it was years ago, where the only place to find your product you were looking for was on a Google platform. And obviously brands are spending more and more money, but what's a little concerning is the more money that's being spent doesn't necessarily mean that performance is improving. So again, we'll touch on that a little bit later on around how we think we can help people with that. And I guess the reason why I feel particularly confident in talking about this, I would never declare myself as any form of expert, but you know, we've been doing this as our bread and butter for the past, you know, 5 to 10 years, especially within the social space. And over the last 2 years alone, you know, we've managed, built and delivered over 300 campaigns for our clients, and actually it equates to 250 million pound in revenue. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't mind doing that for myself, and and having 250 million in the back pocket to spend. And it's around how we drive that performance is what really, I guess, sets us apart in both our approach, but actually the performance that we deliver as well. And as Darren mentioned, we've conducted a survey recently, and it's interesting that we say, oh, we've conducted this survey recently. This is what forms part of what we do for our clients. You know, there's ways of looking at your data points and understanding how a customer transitions from one part of the web onto your site through to purchase. But actually, we find that the best way to get more enriched levels of data is to just talk to your customers. So we advocate that quite a lot at Summit, and we do these on a regular basis, often for clients specifically, others just in general, to make sure that there's nothing that we're missing. But what you're looking at the moment on the screen is the current penetration in the UK of the social platforms, and also around the likelihood that a user will notice them while on the platform. There's probably no real surprise to anybody here around YouTube's, I guess, one, the penetration, it's been around a lot longer, but also the intrusive nature of the ad formats that are there. You know, it basically prevents you from being able to view that. And actually, the customers notice that as well. This isn't me saying this. This is actually what the consumer out there is talking and understanding. But what's really interesting is that there's a plethora of platforms available, yet it's still dominated by Facebook and Instagram when we talk about social. And that isn't fundamentally the case for the consumer and the customer, because there's platforms that are, you know, that haven't got the same level of penetration in the UK as the big two, but actually the relevancy of the audience and the integrated formats that they use make it a more enjoyable experience. So again, it's how you incorporate that type of information into your campaigns and your performance. And it's not just what the platforms are using, it's who's actually using them as well. So we looked at all of the data, and there was, you know, the full spectrum of demographic data there, but actually we looked at it in 34 and under and 35 and above. And what's interesting is that, you know, you can see Facebook, it's over indexing on the 35 and above, which is likely where you're seeing your performance from as well on a direct response. Suggests that the customer actually has a little bit more money to spend because they're a bit older and they're engaged with the content that's being shared. And the same as when you look at Instagram, no real surprise there, 85% of the 34s and unders. But what's really interesting is the spikes and the significant difference between platforms such as Snapchat and TikTok. So we can see that the majority of that demographic is 34 and under, but actually it's how you use this and incorporate this into your platform, into your program. From a performance perspective, you need to be looking at how you measure that activity differently to what you would traditionally on a direct ROI basis. After all, the 34s and unders are the spenders of the future. So from how do you get your brand recognized now with that demographic and ingrain it as your category, your product, so that you make sure you're the first port of call when they're in the market to purchase. And it's also interesting how the consumer view themselves as using the platforms. So for example, I think for a long time now within the digital space, we've sort of knew that Twitter was specifically around in the moment reaction to trends and getting content out there as quickly as possible. But what's really interesting is that the consumer is also using that platform as a form of news. Where do I get the latest updates on what's happening, what's going on in the world, what's the hot conversations? And it's just something where it leans towards thinking about how you tailor the content that you share on that platform. Because traditionally you had print advertising, newspapers, that's moved online and it's display formats now, and it's how you incorporate content in line with how the consumer is using those platforms. No surprise, again, TikTok, the main formats of those are video formats, but actually it's there for fun and enjoyment. So think about how you can make that experience within your creative that engaging, because that is ultimately what they are there for. And the one that really stood out for me was Pinterest, because the majority of time people are on there looking for inspiration, and we know through a couple of the clients that we are currently working with that actually this is in particularly strong within the home category. So again, how you need to be thinking about how you are using that creative message, using your curative views to make sure that you're there when the consumer needs you. Also what we did was we've been working closely with a company called Lumen, who are eye tracking specialists, and actually they shared some really good data with us around how those formats are working and the attention that they get in terms of time. And what's really interesting from that tracking solution is that actually, you've got your traditional TV in there, but the message is use your YouTube and non-skippable formats in the similar ways that you would TV as well. Don't shirk on just thinking, well, I've got this piece of content ready and it was specifically designed for Snapchat or TikTok or Instagram, but think about the format in itself, and is it more suitable to make a specific piece of content for YouTube because it behaves in a similar way to traditional TV. And actually what was really interesting around the eye tracking data was that your social platforms, it's sort of behaving in a similar way to sort of out of home and digital out of home. It's more of you've got a very short space of time to capture the attention of the user. And so I guess ultimately you've got to really start thinking about, are you putting your distinctive assets, your brand image, everything that you value as a retailer in front of the customer or consumer, whichever word you prefer, in the way that's easy for them to consume, but also very, very quickly, because there is such a short space of time to engage with them. And ultimately what we found was that the reason why it's so important, the eye tracking work, is as sad as it sounds, customers don't care about ads and they don't care about a brand as such, not as much as we as marketers do. We're probably more precious around our brands than what the consumer cares about it. And actually it's highlighting the fact that 50% of them find ads annoying in general. Does that really surprise us? Probably not. It depends on how integrated they are into platforms, how intrusive they are to the mission or journey that they're actually on across the social ecosystem. 49% of customers only trust adverts from well-known brands. Now, this was really interesting because on some of the platforms, it's probably been noted that there's been a surge, in particular over the last 18 months, of brands selling products, but actually nobody has heard of the brands before. It's causing trust issues. So again, making sure you spend the time not just focusing on the bottom of the funnel and mopping up all the conversions that have come into the funnel, but actually spending time to talk and actually engage with your customers at a higher level, and I guess measurement is the key around that for most retailers. 52% of customers prefer to see ads for products that they're already interested in. Again, I don't think that is a surprise to anybody, in particular based on the way that retargeting behaviors sort of exploded over the last 5 years. But again, it just highlights the importance of relevancy and not having a one size fits all for your full targeting base. Make sure that segmentation is done in a way that allows you to talk to those consumers in a way that's suited to their needs, as opposed to what you think it's suited for. Common mistake that I think we've probably all made at one point in the past, believing that we're the shopper, and ultimately, the data all suggests that it's the complete opposite. We've got no idea what's happening. And finally, apologies, 47% of customers are happy to see ads in exchange for free access to the platforms. I think it's been shown in the past, people have tried to get rid of the ad experience in return for subscription models and things like that. But actually, as long as the ads aren't intrusive, aren't causing problems, most people are happy to be served ads, as long as they continue to gain that free access to the platform. What's really interesting is the way that the consumer looks at how they use their social platforms. So what we did was we spoke to them around how they gain inspiration, where they garner their research if they've already decided on the product that they're looking at, and where they decide around the purchase. And again, it's not really a huge surprise, I guess, to people that the consumer themselves are using platforms such as Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook as that first, I'm looking for some form of inspiration. But what's really interesting is the TikTok element. So considering how fast it has blown up over the past sort of 2 years, and I've got to be careful not to give Joel a bit of a big head here for when he comes on and talks a little bit later on, but the moves that they've made within that social ecosystem is quite impressive. And actually, it's being absorbed now by the consumer that it is a place to go to look for inspiration. But I guess the bottom part of this is where historically, if we're talking about things, factually, Summit have been that performance marketing agency focusing on this bottom part of the purchase cycle. And it's where we've traditionally seen our clients want us to focus on. But it's now looking, we've got to look at that bigger piece. And that's what we've been trying to do over the past 12 to 18 months, and start really setting ourselves goals on how we use this data to inform other parts of the funnel. And the following part just looks at the purchase end of it. Again, no real surprise, Google and Amazon hugely dominant when it comes to the purchase phase. But what's quite interesting is you can see that Amazon, yes, there's a lot of product searches that take place. I think at the last count, it was sort of 54% of product searches were taking place on Amazon. But nobody goes there for inspiration. Nobody goes there to actively look and get inspired on a particular category. And that's where the importance of joining the two ends of the funnel come together. And the social ecosystem offers that. And more importantly, the consumer actually can relate to that themselves. And I guess there's a huge opportunity here. There's a large area where the social platforms, there's no surprise that they're starting to look at how they pivot to be more of a commerce offering as well. We talk about the likes of Facebook launching their shops in the US last year. No doubt they'll be entering the UK shortly, towards the end of the year soon, because everybody's looking at how they narrow the gap from actually product inspiration, research, and purchase in as few moves as possible. So again, that the future is very much, from our view, is looking at how those platforms now start to pivot and start thinking more of a traditional retail and commerce operating model. And everything isn't just a one size fits all. So this is where it gets really interesting, and why this type of work we carry out so frequently is so important. Our clients talk to their customers, but they talk to about product reviews, and it's primarily the same for retail in general. It's so important to take the time to understand the consumer at a category level as well. So for example, if we take fashion, the consumer is 38% more likely to look across social platforms as a form of inspiration and research across the social platforms. But if we look at Amazon, somewhere traditionally a huge behemoth in the marketing space, but actually they're 30% less likely to go there for that research part of the journey, and actually, you know, only 1% more likely to use YouTube as a form of gathering information on products. So it's how you use that category level information to form the wider picture of your consumer and actually create new segments that are going to be valuable to you both now and in the future. And when we flip that slightly on its head and look at something like electronics, it's interesting that it's 50% less likely that the consumer is going to use social media as a form of garnering more information and doing actual research on a product, which again, you know, that could be down to the formats and how native the ad formats are in the platforms. Whereas YouTube, which we looked at earlier around how intrusive they actually are, but again, it's making sure that you're understanding that people who are researching my category are 65% more likely to use a YouTube video to get that information that they need. So again, how does that form a part of your overall planning when you come into activating either audiences and your own customer segments as well? And ultimately, this is what leads us to get closer to the customer. It's so important to talk to them. Everybody tries to second guess, or at least from my experience, people second guess what they believe or think that their customers do and how they behave. But actually, we need to profile them in a much deeper way. It's not just about online behavior, on-site behavior. It's also around how they are using the web more generally, not just from a purchasing perspective, but where are they garnering their information from, and how is that in line with the categories that I'm looking to talk to them about. Tailoring content, and I'm not talking about the different world of one-to-one personalization. Yeah, I'm talking about how do we group these people and start talking to a segment and driving them to a change in behavior that we would like them to perform. So the content and targeting become really, really important, and also the context around what it is they're looking for, what stage of the journey they're at, in order to be able to determine what the right message is to serve them at the right time. And the brand assets. So again, it's one of the most talked about things, I guess, in marketing, is ensuring that you have those distinctive brand assets. But actually, again, as the research suggests with the guys at Lumen, you've got a really short amount of time to capture and engage those users. So make sure you leverage everything that you have at your disposal to make sure that you capture them, because ultimately your competitor will. And test and learn. So this is the bit where I've got a little bald spot on my head for over the years that I've grew, where I've constantly pulled my hair out, because, you know, you talk to certain retailers and, you know, the agencies are running their programs, and it's a switch on and switch off and then report, because that's what Facebook or Instagram tell them to do. It's utter nonsense. The only way to really drive performance and understand how all of this customer segmentation, understanding your audiences, is to continually test, learn, and optimize your approach. It gets to the point where, as a retailer, you become mature in a market. So it's more about these small gains, and the only way to really understand and unpick them is to continually have a robust test and learn and ultimately optimize approach in place. And this forms basically part of what we do. So we simplified this down because it can get to the point where you're asking that many questions. You spend more time looking for questions than you do really driving change. So we've tried to simplify this down, and that comes to starting with the audience, the consumer, the customer. Who should we target? When should we target them? And then moving on, so objective setting. So what is it that we want them to do? A lot of the time I've come across campaigns where a campaign will be set live, and then there will be a report drafted at the end, and they turn around and say, oh, we drove £4 ROI. Great, fantastic. Is that good? Is that bad? Is it actually what I wanted that customer segment to do? And because that part has been neglected, nobody can really determine what success actually looks like and if they've achieved their overall objective. Now, granted that those first two, there's a lot of work involved. It's not simple and straightforward, but it's worth doing it. And if it's going to be done, you may as well execute it really well. The content, what is it that we want to tell them? So again, formalize that customer segmentation around the context and how those users are using the platforms themselves to really understand how you can talk to them, the language that you should be using to talk to them. All of this information is readily available. You just have to speak to your customers. If without speaking to them, we fly blind forever. The platforms that they're on, again, I'm probably dwelling a bit too much on this. I think we all know where I'm heading with this, but because of that, you can understand what platforms are the right platforms to use for the right job and how we talk to them. Success setting, clear from the start, what is the KPI that we're looking to measure this on? Did we succeed? And don't stop it. Did we succeed? Please don't. Keep going, because yes, it's great you succeeded. You can pat yourself on the back for, a few months, but it should be starting again. That process should be, okay, this worked in this customer segment. Is there any more segments within that I can look to grow my customer base and find more of these users, and not just a switch on of the lookalike profile matching, because again, you miss the level that these platforms give you to be able to talk to them in a way that suits their needs and purposes. And what we found is, by doing this and our approach and really spending time to understand the customer, every time we've been looking at an auditing of accounts or coming in to just spot check what's been happening in a retailer's accounts, we come across the same things over and over again repeatedly. Some of this, controversially, is down to the fact that it's so easy to listen to a rep from a social platform. So easy to just listen and say, they told me, therefore I'm far removed from any blame because I'm doing what the experts told us. But when we dig in, we find, the basics aren't there. Okay, so you're instantly missing out on 10% revenue growth opportunity. People say, why? Just if that's the basics, naming conventions, reporting, get that all streamlined so you can make faster, quicker decisions to improve the performance of your campaigns. Best practice, we found that it's circa 15 to 20%. There's improvements to be gained from that. Audience, again, a one size fits all is great if you are looking at a completely distinct segment that you don't currently target as a retailer. That's great. But if you're looking at performance and driving real change, you need to focus on audience. And this is where we tend to see the biggest opportunity in these audits that we've carried out, circa 20 to 30%. Continually optimize. I've been in our office, not recently, but I have actually walked into the office and banged my head against a brick wall, because you look at campaigns and from retailers and you just think, why are we not optimizing? We're hoping that the Facebooks, the Instagrams and the platforms of the world do all of this for us. That is not the case. It's setting yourself up to fail. And we find that's where another large opportunity is, circa 25% improvements in ROI. And then that creative, leveraging all of the information around the customer, product relevancy, category relevancy, how they want to be spoken to on a contextual and language basis. And when that's all combined, we found that actually, when we activate these campaigns, we can often double the ROI without any additional investment. So again, it sounds, to be fair, Darren highlighted, it sounds like a bit of a plug, but actually I find it so frustrating in that this day and age, we are that socially distant from our customer, as well as distancing ourselves from getting our hands in the weeds and doing the things that need to be done to ensure campaign success. There's so much opportunity out there at the moment, and I just feel it's not being capitalized on. And because those foundations aren't in place, then the next shiny new thing that comes out the box, everybody wants to be a part of, but it's going to also limit the potential because of the fundamentals not being in place. And I do apologise because I'm probably rabbited on far too much, but I just felt it was important to dwell on that for a little bit longer. And I guess the final thing to say is that if anybody does want to talk to us in any way, shape or form, or even just have a little scan through so I can spend more time running my head against brick walls, but feel free to reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to take a look and help.
Thank you very much, Carl. Really comprehensive view of the life of a man looking after big social media budgets. So as Carl says, do get in touch if any of that is of interest. You want to hear a bit more about it, then do get in touch. And we're going to collect a little bit more data before I hand over to Joel. So we've got a quick poll, which hopefully will pop up on your screens shortly. And the question we're going to ask is, how many paid social channels do you use for a typical campaign? So thinking about the range of options that there are available that Carl's talked through. So please do vote. And we will share the results of that at the end after we've heard from Joel. We do, Carl, if you can come back on, we do have a question in the Q&A, which we'll answer now as whilst it's still fresh. So we've had a question. The question is, does the low penetration of Pinterest suggest an opportunity and less reliance on Facebook?
Absolutely, yes. Just because something has low penetration doesn't mean that they aren't the right customers that you are looking to talk and engage with. So I touched on it slightly before around home, for example, the home category. What we're finding on Pinterest is that a lot of people are going there looking specifically for inspiration. They're looking at how they redesign the rooms, and they're looking for that spark. That's something that sets the ball rolling as part of their overall mission to redesign their space. And actually being able to curate products and create groups of products and have them in a very unintrusive environment is a great opportunity for retailers, and it's happening not just on home. We're seeing it in fashion. The thing to not worry too much about is the penetration. So it's great that we've got huge penetration across the big two, but actually how relevant is the customer base on there for you to be talking to for your category and your products? The opportunity is huge. The bit about reliance on the big two, Facebook and Instagram, are you likely to switch that off because Pinterest's going to take up the slack? Absolutely not. It's about understanding what stage in that journey the customer is on, and this is why I challenge the teams to spend so much time talking to customers, because without knowing where they spend their time, how they're using those platforms, you'll never know where to truly invest your budget. And again, we all know the more platforms that you have running, the better your overall performance is anyway, as long as it's measured correctly. So sorry, I'm talking again. I do apologize. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I guess it comes back to that last point on your top tip slide, which was, test and learn. So if you think there might be an opportunity with Pinterest, who knows until you tried it. And then learn from that and adjust accordingly. Right, Joel, are you there? I think we've had a few more questions coming in, but I will save those for the end. And in the meantime, we're going to hear from Joel, and he can take us through what's happening in the world of TikTok.
Oh, I've unmuted you, Anne.
Yeah.
Is that working? I think it is. Cool. Awesome. So I guess first of all, thanks for having me. Really appreciate that one. I think, Carl, your session was really good, and I think for me, it's really interesting to see how you guys look at kind of our position as well as other platforms as well. And for me, one thing that stood out as a really interesting touch point was time. And I think time is really something that, on our platform has grown quite significantly. In, Q1 this year, we've actually had more time in app than Facebook and also Instagram as well. So I think that's something that, really shows, how, unique our audience is, in that they're, repeatedly coming back into the platform to, be inspired by creativity and ultimately entertained. And I think another touch point on that was your stat. I think it said that 55% of people from your surveys found, blatant adverts actually annoying. Well, to counter that, our kind of mantra for business at TikTok is don't make ads, but make TikToks. And, fundamentally, what we've created over the past, 12, 18 months is really a place where individuals can be themselves, but also a place now where brands and advertisers can really be themselves as well. And, throughout this session, we'll go through that in a bit more detail. And we'll talk through how, brands are really making a splash on the platform, how they're making TikToks, but not ads, and really being their most authentic selves. And I think my final point, on the session that the summit guys went through as well, is just looking at purchases, right? If you've been onto TikTok, you'll be aware that, where, anything can go viral, trends can go off, anyone can really become discovered. And off the back of that, we've got a number of cool insights, which I can share as a follow-up, which suggests that TikTok made me buy it. And that may not be via, a direct transaction or direct to that client's e-com site, but ultimately, having that overarching campaign success is really something that underpins our strategies at TikTok as well. Throughout this session, if there's any questions, I know we've got a Q&A set up at the bottom. Feel free to ask as many questions as you want. I'm an open book and we can answer these towards the end as well. So cool. As an introduction from my side, my name's Joel. I'm the main point of contact for all things TikTok with regards to Summit. I work on kind of performance partnerships, so working closely with that kind of bottom of funnel approach on the platform as well. And, the first slide, which I want to really take you guys through, is just showing you how, brands, creators, and individuals are really, acting and behaving on our community, just to really paint the picture as to, how fun and engaging this platform really is.
I used to wonder if I ever could be loved. Never gonna live up. Should I give up? Will I ever be enough? What I didn't understand is you love me as I am. Nah, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. Yeah, they are. No, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. How can I be silent? You washed away those stains, and the grace you give it is the reason I'll never be the same. How can I be silent? I will not be silent. How can I be silent?
As you can see there, from the video on screen, what we've really created is a place where individuals can be themselves. We've offered them a source of entertainment throughout a time of uncertainty. And what's really at the heart of that is our community. And as you can see here, our community in the UK is now made up of 19.4 million monthly active users. Despite what many people think that TikTok is a platform for those under the age of 18. But in fact, 84% of our community are now over the age of 18. With the bulk of which coming from this 18 to 24, 25 to 34 demographic. And I guess to reference back to, Carl's point previously, these are the future, decision makers, the future people who are going to be spending these money and making those purchases as well. So a really good touch point, just looking at that audience in a bit more detail. Another interesting touch point is that across Europe, 30% of our community are also parents. And that really showcases that growth that we've gone through over the past 12, 18 months or so as well. To add a bit of context to this, in January last year, we were a platform of 5 million monthly active users. We're now a platform of just shy of 20 million. And that really just highlights that growth that we've gone through in a bit more detail as well. If you're like me and you're a massive rugby fan who was actually gutted about Wales losing the Grand Slam on the weekend, then you can see here that this stat is really interesting, right? The average amount of time that a Brit spends on TikTok on a daily basis is 85 minutes. That's longer than your average rugby game, not far off your average football game, and longer than your average Netflix and Amazon Prime episode as well. So I think what this really shows is just, how engaging our community really is, and that users are repeatedly coming back into our platform to be inspired by creativity and ultimately entertained. To expand on this, our community is really active, right? We've said on average, a user goes into the app for 85 minutes on a daily basis. But what this slide touches upon is the average amount of time that a user spends in the app per session. The only comparable platform to us is YouTube. YouTube being very much a long video entertainment platform, TikTok being very much a short video entertainment platform. With this in mind, we wouldn't put ourselves in the same boat as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Snapchat. Firstly, because they identify as social platforms. But secondly, because TikTok is sound on. When you're on our platform, you have to be fully immersed into the content that you're consuming. And, you can't necessarily multitask. You guys may be as guilty as I am. You can be on your phone whilst, or on Facebook or Instagram, for example, whilst cooking or watching TV. Because we are 100% sound on, you have to be fully immersed into that content that you're consuming, placing it in, the best position for our community when they're engaging with our content, but also for brands and advertisers as they look to work with us from a partnership perspective as well. In addition to this, the uniqueness of our community is really something that impresses brands and advertisers. Over the past 3 months, this slide here just touches upon the amount of users that are unique to TikTok. 45% of our users are not on Instagram, 40% not on Facebook, 40% not on Snapchat. What this slide really touches upon is that by working with us, you can reach untapped audiences that you may not necessarily be able to reach on platforms such as those mentioned above. Ultimately, if you're looking to diversify your marketing mix or, help with your new customer acquisition strategies, then, this slide just really reinforces that there's a unique audience there that you guys can tap into as well. And I think as well as this, on other platforms, your market share may be, quite diluted. Whereas on TikTok, you can have a larger share of voice for your industry as well. To complement this, and I think to go back to the second point that I raised at the start of the webinar, looking at 55% of people, according to the Summit survey, feel that adverts can be annoying. And to complement that, or to counteract that, our mantra for business is to not make ads and to make TikToks. This slide here is, fundamental to success on our platform. And these are our best practices, right? So we recommend leveraging creators, being your most authentic selves on the platform. We've created something called the Creator Marketplace that I'll come on to in my next slide. And this allows you to reach best performing creators and influencers, split by market, split by vertical, and allows you to make data-driven marketing decisions as well. In addition to this, TikTok is sound on. When you're on our platform, you have to be fully immersed into the content that you're consuming. And therefore, sound is imperative to success. Ultimately, keep it simple, make it fun. But really going back to that, product element, right? Whereby you're bringing elements of your product to life. This is really a best practice for us, showing an unboxing strategy or, an individual wearing that particular item. I think these are the strategies that are really going to get the best results for you and your clients as well. You know, to complement this and to make your lives as easy as possible, what we've created is the Creator Marketplace. This is essentially our kind of, own in-house creator influencer portal that allows you to reach those best performing creators, split by market, split by vertical. If you haven't done so already, I'd highly recommend signing up to it. You can sign up for free. It's just a really powerful tool to enhance your creative strategy on TikTok as well. And for us, when looking at this from a creative strategy, what we offer is we offer a full funnel marketing solution. We have our kind of top view creatives, which is a share of voice strategy, brand takeover, branded effect, branded hashtag challenge, all of which are purchased on a reservation model, whereby you can work with some of our experienced campaign traders as well. But what we also offer is our in-feed video, and our in-feed video is, our performance-led strategy that can be utilized on a fully self-serve basis. It allows you to optimize towards cost-efficient CPMs. CPMs in the UK are currently coming in at, £1.10, £1.20. So a really good time to get up and running on the platform. It allows you to optimize towards CPCs, but really just gives you that full flexibility to maximize your ROIs from our platform in the same way that you may do on other platforms as well. The in-feed video occurs every 5 creatives in your For You page. And again, allows you to optimize towards that cost-efficient, CPM. We can set up a TikTok pixel to monitor users who go directly from our app and go on to convert as well. We've got kind of a number of different betas and alphas that we're rolling out at the moment, such as our developer mode pixel, or kind of reach and frequency strategies as well. All of which can help amplify and kind of maximize your return on investment from our platform as well. This is just a really good example here, just showing how brands are really being creative on the platform. And it's a really good creative actually, because it's a strategy that we've done in Germany, and it's kind of giving away that kind of methodology where you're in a supermarket and you see someone that you don't know or you don't want to see, and you're trying to hide. So let's have a look at this creative.
All you do is talk about money in the bank, right? I don't give a damn. Spend it all. I don't give a damn. I do it for the brand.
And I think that there just really symbolizes, what TikTok is really about in many ways. It taps into those best practices, being authentic, utilizing sound, keeping it simple, making it fun. And that again addresses that issue that we've discussed, Carl was discussing earlier, right? Whereby 55% of, users find those ads annoying. Well, TikTok here, we don't make ads, we make TikToks, and that's fundamental to success on our platform. And to complement this, authentic strategy that we've got, where you're being yourself, you're tapping into some of our best practices. What we've also introduced is some of our more bottom of funnel approaches, which are currently being rolled out in beta at the moment. These are our collection ads. These allow you to overlay, 3 distinct creatives or 3 distinct static images and URLs to the bottom of that creative, which can ultimately combine this authentic nature, but with a more bottom of funnel approach. Again, we've got about 12 advertisers live with these in the UK at the moment. So if there are anyone on this call who's interested in tapping into these, then again, I'm more than happy to entertain those conversations and get those conversations moving as well. In addition to this, we've also rolled out our new dynamic product ads. In a similar vein to how you're working with other platforms from a dynamic product ads perspective, you're probably you're probably aware on how the setup works. But again, it allows you to serve specific catalogs to relevant audiences, essentially to enhance that more bottom of funnel approach as well. Again, this is currently being rolled out in beta. So, if this is something that you are interested in, we can pick this up on a separate thread, or, maybe myself and Carl can speak to you about this in a bit more detail as well. And then lastly, I've just included a nice little slide of some of the work that we've done in Australia with our collection ads. And I think this just really showcases, just how powerful these more bottom of funnel approaches can be. As you can see here, ROAS of nearly 6 times, increase in product page visits of 54%. And yeah, obviously by including, specific discount codes into that creative, we can obviously create a splash and maximize the ROI. But I think, the strategy is interesting here, just by looking at including those collection ads. You can ultimately maximize that performance as well. But that is everything from my side for today. I would love to open the floor to questions. I've seen a few come in. So yeah, I'd love to take questions on that as well.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Joel, and hopefully everyone found that as insightful and interesting as I did. As you say, Joel, we'll have Carl come back and join us, but while he's switching himself back on, there's a question specifically for you. How would you suggest using TikTok ads for high-ticket items such as a sofa? Really
good question. From our side, we've got an array of advertisers live on the platform. Luxury have come onto the platform. Gucci have done a massive splash. Automotive is obviously a big one for us as well at the moment. So I think high ticket items, certainly go and play into our favor. I think, with the high ticket items, what we're seeing is, clients coming in with, first of all, a more upper funnel approach, right? We need to get enough data on our users on our platform in order to build out those learnings and then lower that funnel exploitation. Within our platform, I think getting through that learning phase is probably the starting point. Clients, may have been using Facebook and Instagram for the past 5 to 9 years in many ways. And I think there's an abundance of data there on those users. But I think for us is ultimately hitting that more upper funnel approach and then lowering that funnel exploitation with the likes of dynamic product ads, with the likes of collection ads. And these are what we're really seeing the best results from a, luxury perspective or a bigger ticket item as well.
And it's something that we've been looking at as well, Joel, around how we bring to life in the creative those big ticket items. So there's so much fun to be had on the TikTok platform, with that creative element. Even if I take something of, I don't know, a washing machine, and I don't know where this is going yet, but let's take that washing machine, the big ticket item, it's a really considered purchase. There was a phase years ago of people chucking bricks in them. How do you do that in a more sensible, safe way to make the creative engaging and, or the sofa as it's been highlighted? How do we take that and make it so that it jumps off the screen at you? It doesn't have to be just a sofa in a video. It can be, how does that sofa fit in your room? How is it moving around? How does it fit in with the other elements of it? And really bring it to life with the creative side. And I think that's where TikTok differs slightly from the other platforms. It's slightly more immersive in that sense.
Yeah, great. Okay. Another TikTok specific one, and then we'll go back to some of the questions for Carl. So do you think a brand can use creators to advertise products via Creator Marketplace without having their own brand account, which posts regularly? With limited time and resource to run an account, can small brands still benefit from the platform?
Absolutely. Really good question. Using the Creator Marketplace, this will allow you to reach that specific creator, right, which can give you that organic strategy. What we can also do, utilizing our TikTok Ads Manager on a self-serve basis, is we can put paid for revenue behind that particular influencer strategy by boosting that content, overlaying more bottom of funnel approaches, maybe overlaying collection ads or overlaying, interest-based targeting into that creative in order to enhance that influencer strategy. I'd probably say 70% of the clients that I currently work with don't have an organic presence on TikTok, or even have a strong organic presence on TikTok, right? So for me, you can ultimately get up and running with the creator marketplace, boost that content as well, by running kind of ads off the back of that as well. So yeah, for me, there's certainly an opportunity there.
Great. So thinking more about Facebook, Carl, there's a question here. Can you really beat the machine with dynamic audience profiling from Facebook with all the data they have? I have tried and failed. What advice do you have?
You shouldn't be fighting the machine. You should be finding out how your approach complements the machine. You are right in the sense that they have so much data available, but how do you complement that data? These platforms are designed for a one-size-fits-all solution. Everybody's, approaching it with the same. There's no differentiation between how one campaign's run into another campaign if you just follow the machine incessantly. And ultimately, you've got to make sure that they're aligned to your goals. The number of times that I've come across reps from different platforms that are aligned to their own objective, instead of actually how do we work with the client more. I guess in some respect, that's why we've been quite fortunate with Joel as being our man on the ground, if you like, at TikTok, because he takes the time to actually understand what the objective is and what we're trying to achieve. So I would say you shouldn't be looking at it as if it's one or the other. It's how do they complement each other, and how do you get the best use out of them. The platforms are there for us to use them to what suits your own needs.
So it's don't blindly trust the algorithm but still leverage it according to what you're trying to achieve. And I guess Joel, for you, in terms of TikTok's approach to kind of targeting and relying on algorithms versus giving people control, what's your philosophy on that?
Yeah, great question. I was wondering where you're going there, Carl, with the platform side. From our side, I think Carl kind of echoed it there. I think for us, we're obviously looking at the bigger picture, right? We're looking at, as I said previously, building out that learning for overall campaign success. If we're going in at the bottom of funnel approach from the very beginning, it's going to be very difficult to build out those learnings and ultimately have the overarching campaign success for the client. So for us, it's about building out those learnings, looking at more upper funnel approaches to begin, and then going down into the more deeper side of targeting capabilities. And from an algorithm perspective, right, TikTok as an algorithm is very different to other platforms. We are built around a content graph. Therefore, any content can go viral. And I think that's very different to the way that people look at other platforms, right? People look at Facebook and Instagram and assume that our algorithm is the same as that, which is incorrect. And I think, allowing time for the algorithm to naturally optimize towards users who are going to engage heavily with your content is the bread and butter for us, right? Which can ultimately help with your new customer acquisition strategies, because let's be honest, right? If you're looking at overlaying an interest-based segment in Facebook and Instagram on TikTok as well, the likelihood is these individuals may still be in that segment as well. So for us, it's more about utilizing the algorithm itself and using, the way that our back end works into finding users naturally who are going to purchase that product, right? Which I think is really good from a new customer acquisition strategy.
And there's a related question there. If we're confident that TikTok can deliver sales, can we buy on a cost per sale or a CPA basis?
At the moment, CPM is the purchase that we sell on. I'm speaking aggressively with our product team in terms of looking at purchasing on that CPA model. But at the moment it is CPM. But I think for us, as I've said, it's more about kind of getting that learning right to begin with, looking at more upper funnel objectives until we can lower that funnel, right? We don't want to go in and go for bottom of funnel objectives to begin, because we haven't got the data to hit that at the moment. I think for us, it's about going up a funnel, overlaying collection ads or dynamic product ads, and then lowering that funnel. I think that is the success that we're seeing. And by combining that with quite a nice, powerful, creative messaging tool as well, I think, we'd be in a fantastic position to drive revenue as well.
Great, and then we've got just a minute left, so I'm going to wrap a couple up into one question. There was the question around the research that we did. Is that UK focused? Yes, it is UK focused. Do you think the results would be different in different markets? I would suggest there'd be some subtle differences where there's different levels of maturity for different platforms, but I think the underlying customer behaviors will be pretty similar. But I guess, Joel, do you see with TikTok's global footprint, do you see differences in user behavior and how advertisers use the platform across markets?
I think, from a user behavior perspective, the bulk of our audience is now coming from this 18 to 24, 25 to 34. So I think from an audience perspective, I think that's kind of how they're engaging with the platform. I think, really, to be honest, it does differ based on market. I think, TikTok's really now got a community for everything, right? I think, we're now a platform of nearly 20 million people in the UK. We've exceeded 100 million monthly active users in Europe, which is, the growth is phenomenal, right? But I also found out a couple of weeks ago that we've also got, a community on the platform of, I think it's 1.5 million people who are literally like posting content based on like motorcycling, for example. So for me, TikTok is a platform that has, communities of everything or interests in everything as well. So if you haven't done so already and there's something that you're interested in, go onto the platform and, search those keywords, because it's a platform for everyone.
Great. Okay, well, unfortunately, we are out of time. I think we could have gone on for another good 10, 15 minutes at least. So I'm just going to quick one last slide from me, just to say, if, those of you who had questions and we didn't get to them, by all means do get in touch. There's an email address there. If it gets similar, if you want to get in touch with Joel, we can help set that up. But yes, and if you're interested in anything else that we've covered, whether you're interested in the paid social audits that Carl talked about, more insights from our survey, then do get in touch. And we are giving, we've got another webinar next month where we're giving the search channel a similar treatment. So do sign up for that as well if you're interested.